To order for today, Monday, October 7th, 2019. I would ask for anyone in the audience who does have a mobile device or other platform to put their cell phones or tablets, what have you, on to silent or vibrate to keep the distractions down to a minimum. One other quick note, we are having a little bit of technical difficulties evidently with our network right now, so Alderman Janser and Alderman Straight had planned to call in via phone to attend the meeting, and until that network is back up and running, unfortunately, they will not be joining us by phone today. So hopefully we'll get that fixed before we get too far into our agenda. With that, roll call, please.
Janser? Olson?
Here.
Pittner?
Here.
Padragula?
Here.
Straight? Wolski?
Here.
Sitma?
Here. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Number 3 on our agenda this afternoon is the mayor's report, and I was able to actually get mine not on the network, so we do have some graphics for that. For anyone that was not in and around the Magic City, it was a very busy month, of course, with lots of different activities that were taking place, including the North Coast Fest. I will just hit some of the highlights from some of the different activities and meetings. September 9th was yet another one of the zombie home acquisition closings at North Dakota Guarantee and Title. I do want to also commend staff and the folks at North Dakota Guarantee and Title for making many of these acquisitions very quick and seamless as we have gone through not only those, but then through the acquisitions for some of the homes in the flood footprint. So I appreciate staff with that hard work. September 11th, I was at Northern Plains Elementary, second grade up at Minot Air Force Base, talking a little bit about my roles as the city mayor and other activities that take place as a part-time position. Somehow many kids, even in second grade, still find that hard to believe. On the 12th of September, I did have quite a few different activities going on. I was also at Minot State University for Future Palooza, talking with high school seniors and juniors from not only Minot, from around the region, about careers in public service, as well as some of the insights to local public service. On the 12th, I also attended the Herbology Open House, not herb, but herb, in Southwest Minot, prior to their ribbon cutting to get a look at what our medicinal marijuana facility does look like. And then on the 13th, I was at Minot Central Campus for the Real World class presentation. For that, it was again talking with juniors and seniors about public service and the job as mayor. I also do want to commend the Minot Police Department. That was a day that there was I think some threat at some level to Central Campus in some form. I'm not sure quite what it was, but there was a lot of police presence on site, and I think everyone that was in class and the faculty themselves felt very comfortable and at ease, and I didn't have any concerns myself, so thank you, Chief. On the 17th, I was at John Hoven Elementary for the second grade presentation. Again, everybody is about public service this past month, and had many great questions, and had a couple of dabbers behind me there, as you can see in the picture. On the 17th, I did also talk with Minot Youth Robotics team that has been working at Minot State University in the evenings to put their program together. And on the 18th, the Army Corps of Engineers, Colonel Jensen from the St. Paul District for the flood control discussions and tour was in town. He was newly brought into his position in July, so we were able to take him around and show him all the work that is going on and some of the work by his predecessors. On September 19th and 20th, I was down at the North Dakota League of Cities Conference in Bismarck, as well as City Manager Berry and several staff for a lot of the different discussions and sessions that were held down there. On the 22nd of September, we did greet the Norwegian delegation that came in on a Sunday. We met them up for a late dinner to kind of talk about what was coming ahead for the week. On the 23rd, then, we did have the Mayor's Husfest social and dinner with the Norwegian delegation for the full council and for some of the other city leaders. On the 24th, then, was the Joint Service Club luncheon at the Husfest activities with Darren Erstedt. It was kind of nice to talk a little bit about baseball, but admittedly, his stories were much more fascinating than mine. On the 24th, then, we did kick off the Sister City Relation Skien Norway business meeting at the up here at the auditorium that lasted for several hours. We were unable to actually get through our entire agenda, so we did actually hold a follow-up meeting on that. On the 24th then was the governor's reception later that evening, and then the Hall of Fame banquet later that night. On the 25th, yet another elementary school in Minot, Sunnyside Elementary, where once again I made my presentation about some of the mayor activities. On the 26th, interviewed with Prairie Public Radio as they were here for the Norse Coast Fest. The 26th was that follow-up business meeting that we had talked about with our folks from Norway. And on the 27th, then, I did attend the presentation for Congressional Medal of Honor recipient Clint Romeshay for a mortgage-free home. Wells Fargo donated to the Military Warrior Support Foundation, and Clint Romeshay was the recipient of that. I said it at the presentation. Certainly, we are honored as a city to have the Romeshay family in Minot, in our community, calling home, and very appreciative of not only Wells Fargo, but the Military Warrior Support Foundation that was in town for the day. Then on the 30th, I did have a number of other activities. I did attend the Sertoma 60th Anniversary Dinner and Social, talking about more than $1 million impact that they've had on our community over their 60 years. And then the only other notable that did not make it on the list was this afternoon an interview with KX about the zombie home and then some of the issues that are on our agenda this evening. I did have 12 other meetings with city administrators, citizens, and numerous other communications through phone calls, emails, and others. Does anyone have any questions about my report or activities? If not, I do have a couple of appointments that are in front of you for consideration this evening.
Move approval on your appointments.
Motion to approve by Alderman Olson.
Second.
Second by Alderman Padragula. Any discussion on the motion? Please call the roll.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Wolski, Sitma.
Yes, motion is approved. I do have one last little item that I do want to touch on before I take a look over here to our city manager, and that is kind of what most of us have been hearing, not tomorrow, but Wednesday. We have that S word coming in our forecast, and with what appears to be some snowfall, I do also want to remind this tends to be some of the first challenges of our community when we get snow, as a lot of folks that may be newcomers to north central North Dakota or North Dakota period, that our city crews are already gearing up for that. I could probably call Dan up here and go through the repeated process that we go through, but unless, Dan, if you want to come forward, we are aware that there is snow coming. City staff is aware, and we will continue to work through our snow program, which we have outlined year after year now, and have gone through the extensive process of reevaluating that, and we will continue each and every year. So with that, I am complete with my mayor's report, and this is where we turned over to the city manager, where his report evidently is part of the network that is down.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. I apologize. Depending upon your perspective or view, you may appreciate that I don't have the city manager's report available for you this evening. It was actually a doozy. It was going to take us some time to get through, so maybe it's a good time for it not to be running properly. What I can do is provide you that report tomorrow when the network is back up and running, and then email it out to all of you, and we can also place it up on the city's website. And then, of course, if you as council members have questions or any of that sort of thing, I can address it at that point in time. Or I can hold and just kind of put everything into the next city manager's report. Of course, much of the information I have will be outdated at that point in time. So my recommendation would just be to give you the presentation tomorrow when it's back online.
Thank you, and if there are any pertinent issues that do need to be brought up, certainly we can bring those up at our next city council meeting in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Alderman Walski.
Mayor, thank you. I did have a discussion item or a topic that I wanted to bring up as a part of the city manager's report tonight, in part because I think it's a relevant topic in the community right now, and the city manager's report seemed like the most appropriate place to gather some publicity around it. But I know with all the rain in the month of September and more snow and rain in the forecast, the community is, I think, a little bit on alert for circumstances in 2019 and 2020 that are lining similarly to how they did in 2010 and 2011. one of the really contributing factors was a wet fall. And so I think it's appropriate for the city to be out in front in terms of how we anticipate responding to a flood emergency should one arise next spring. There's certainly no guarantee or even maybe likelihood that that's going to happen. But I sent an email to the council and I think the relevant staff members this evening talking about Fargo and the way they publicize and make their plan available. I think it's important to note that Minot does have a very similar plan to what Fargo has, sort of a phased approach. I believe that's part of the SWIFT work. But I would like to see that particular plan, some publicity around it, and maybe more widely available, especially through the city's website in terms of how we respond. It's not the easiest document to find. So I just wanted to bring that up because I think the community's paying attention to this stuff and they want to see how prepared we are for what may come. Hopefully does not, but.
I think with that, we can certainly have staff take a look at the availability online. And as we do move forward, and we do have some of those calls with the SRJB and other folks that monitor the moisture levels throughout the basin, we certainly will continue to, I think, push that information. But for the time being, we'll have our public information officer take a look at that on getting that into maybe an easier access point on our website. So thank you, Alderman Walski, and I have no doubt that we'll continue to monitor throughout the season, this winter, and into the springtime. That takes us on to number 5, to consider the report of the Planning Commission. We did have City Attorney. I skipped right by you there, Kelly. I apologize. Please proceed.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, I submitted a written report, and I would be happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for our city attorney outside of what has been submitted in her report or regarding to it? All right. Thank you, Kelly. Now we can move on to number 6, consider the report of the Planning Commission. We did have 4 different items that came through the Planning Commission. 2 of them are public hearings. Do we want to take these individually, or do we have a motion otherwise for the remaining 2 items?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move the remaining 2 items.
6.1 and 6.3. Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Walski on 6.1 and 6.3, and a second by Alderman Pittner to approve as was sent to us by the Planning Commission. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Wolski,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to 6.2, a public hearing for the McHenry Edition Lot 1. A public hearing to consider the request by FMI Inc. to pass an ordinance to rezone a portion of Outlot 7 in Section 14-155-83 from R3B, the multiple residential medium density, to C2, General Commercial District. It's recommended that City Council approve a request by FMI Inc. to subdivide Lots 1 Boyce Addition together with a portion of Outlot 7 in Section 14-155-83 to create McHenry Addition Lot Number 1. This is a public hearing, an opportunity from anyone in the public to come forward to speak for or against the item that was also in front of the Planning Commission its last meeting. Again, an opportunity for anyone in favor or opposed to the item that is in front of us. If not, please come forward and name and address for the record.
Mr. Mayor, Alderman, my name is Chad Thompson. I live at 525 Hilltop Street Northwest. Speaking in favor of the zone change, we plan to develop that corner into a commercial property, multi-tenant building around 6,500 to 7,000 square feet. So,
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Any questions from the council? All right.
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time? If not, I would look for a motion from the council.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to close the public hearing and to
Yes, of
approve the
course.
item?
Yes, thank you.
Motion by Alderman Olson, second by Alderman Pittner. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Sitma.
Yes. Motion is approved. 6.4 on our agenda is another public hearing. The East Side Estates Lot 7, Block 2, a public hearing to consider a request by Eugene Kraft to pass an ordinance for a zone change from R1 Single Family Residential District to MH Manufactured Home District to locate a manufactured home on the property located at 3465 47th Street Southeast. The Planning Commission recommends that the City Council deny the application. This again is a public hearing for anyone in the audience to come forward and speak in favor or opposed to the recommendation by the Planning Commission or by any other information. And for the council, there was a handout that was also provided prior to council for you to take a look at. If you could, your name and the address for
Yeah,
the record.
Al Fisher out in East Side Estates, 3235 48th Street Southeast. And I'd like to address Mayor Sitma, City Manager, City Attorney, and council members. I've had my property out there since 1977. It was a planned development at the time, and it was a Wausau home, as many of them are out there, stick-built. And at some point down the road, I think, what the plan community originally was, I believe the stipulation was there were some single-wide mobile homes out there. And once they were removed, then it had to be a stick-built home. That was my recollection. And at some point in time, I think it might have been in the 90s, apparently the zoning was changed to allow manufactured homes. And we have a tremendous amount of them out there due to this change. At the time, the change was a little bit stunning because we thought it was, supposed to be the other way. And I'm not sure who made the change, but it turned out to be a pretty good change because if you drive out there, you'll see that most of these manufactured homes are really nice. They've got screen rooms, they've got garages, they're a lot nicer than what was replaced. Now, here we are, fast forward to 2019, and I was not aware of that, but my neighbor and friend Gene Kraft talked to me one day about a lot he's had out there for as long as I can remember. Wanting to put a manufactured home out there as a result of his wife's disability. And he said that if I understand this correctly, in 2014, the zoning was changed not to allow manufactured homes, but previously they changed it to allow them. The neighborhood now has tremendous amount of manufactured homes. There's very few lots left to be developed. And now Gene wants to put a manufactured home in, and he's being told, no, you can't do that. And I'm puzzled. I just don't understand where the logic came from for this. What was the impetus to have this zoning changed back after all the homes are already there? And Gene has been probably one of the best neighbors out there, very well-kept property. And I'm here just to basically make a plea that common sense prevails and he's allowed to bring that manufactured home in.
Thank
Questions?
you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Fisher?
Thank you.
Anyone else to come forward to speak in favor or against? Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Gary Kramlich, retired realtor, and I'm speaking on behalf of changing that zoning to permit a manufactured home there. In my history of real estate, and that goes back 56 years, prior to that time, that was known as Dolan subdivision, owned by Mike Dolan and now Mike Dolan and Harold Moan, and I believe Roger Odell was involved there then, and it was only a single-family subdivision, and that was in 1963. That dates us well. And like the prior speaker spoke, that has flip-flopped back and forth going into the city's now authority to zone that area. Prior it was county zoning. But frankly, the reason they permitted the mobile homes to go in there is they couldn't sell the lots. Absolutely couldn't sell them. And if my best recollection is I think I sold a lot for as low as $1,500 out there for half-acre lots. But in this case, I really appeal to the council's wisdom in looking at that entire area. There are very few not built on lots. I think the entire area should be zoned manufactured home permitted. That doesn't prohibit you from putting a stick-built home in, and people can do as they like. But like the prior person that spoke, I understand that there are a lot of manufactured homes there. And I think I was told like 50-some manufactured homes, 20-some stick-built homes. And the petitioner has got 2 stick-built homes, one on each side of this subject lot, and wants to do it for his wife. And I'm here only because that has been such a waffled area for such a long time that the council really needs to look at it. And at this point, I would recommend that you approve the manufactured housing, but take a look at it at the Planning Commission and give the entire area a zone change for manufactured housing. It will increase the value of the vacant lots. It will help the value of anyone else wanting to buy or sell out there, and it will not affect the single-family houses any more than it has in the past. Thank you for your time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Kramlich? Thank you. Name and address, sir.
My name is William Erdman. I have 4600 32nd Avenue Southeast. I own 14 of the lots out there, and I sold 10 of them. All 10 went to manufactured homes. And that was before the flood, of course, but I had no trouble selling them. Everybody wanted them. I have a stick-built house. I've got one of the most expensive houses out there, and I would not object to it. For me, it saves me in taxes, because you guys like to tax me to death, and that's why I went outside city limits. So I like manufactured homes. It's saving me money. I would want him to be able to Gene Kraft put a manufactured home there.
Thanks, sir. Any questions for, is it Mr. Burton?
Erdman.
Erdman, thank you. Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Michael Power. I live at 3450 47th Street Southeast in Eastside Estates. I grew up in the area. Actually live on my mom's lot. Tore down her house. It was a double wide. And we put a manufactured house on there in January this year. And I'm just speaking in favor for Gene to put a manufactured home on that lot for his wife and him. And I'm just here in favor and speaking for him.
Thank you, Mr. Power. Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else to come forward to speak for or against? If we could, name and address for the record.
Mr. Mayor, Alderman of the city of Minot. My name's Paul Wilkins. I live in Bismarck, North Dakota. I've been asked to come before you on behalf of my mother and father-in-law, Eugene Kraft, who are subject to the application for rezoning of the lot in question to place a mobile home or manufactured housing on. I want to start by saying I'm pleasantly surprised and I'm grateful to all the individuals who've come up here tonight and spoke in favor of my mother and father-in-law. They've owned this lot for several years. I have provided to you documentation in the form of an outline or a map, if you will, of the entire Eastside Estates, of which you will find 50 manufactured homes or mobile homes currently in that neighborhood. approximately 20 single-family homes. We're not here necessarily to debate how or when those mobile homes got there. And it's not an argument I'm prepared to have. It's not a discussion I'm prepared to have because I don't have all the facts. You've heard from individuals who've been here longer than some of us have been alive, myself included, who've stated they know the history of that neighborhood. I stand before you as a son-in-law and ask that this be permitted and approved. My father-in-law is a veteran of the United States Navy. His health is failing. My mother-in-law's health is failing, and they desperately need a single-level home of which to live on. And this manufactured home gives them that opportunity to enjoy the rest of their days in a peaceful and enjoyable environment of which they can live their life without the stress or fear of stairs. That's really all I have for you this evening, folks. It's my request that you guys approve this and let it move forward to the second meeting of the council for final vote and passage. Give us the opportunity to get the permits in order to get this home moved out here for these folks.
Thank you, sir. Any questions?
You want my
Appreciate
physical address on here, sir? In Bismarck?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Anyone else to come forward for the public hearing to speak for or opposed to the item before us?
Good evening. My name's Pete Hoffert. I live at 3410 47th Street Southeast in East United States. I've been a resident of that neighborhood for about 26 years now. I've known Mr. Kraft for most of that time. I do urge the council to approve this project. Having known Mr. Kraft and seen him do many projects, he has always finished any of his projects to a high level of excellence. He has enhanced the community in many ways, and I believe raised the value of all of our properties out there with the projects he has done. Really, I think most everybody else has also said more, just as much as I am. But I urge you to approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffert. Any questions? Thank you, sir. Anyone else to come forward for a public hearing? At this time, I think I might ask our principal planner to come forward as part of our planning commission staff to maybe give an overview of the recommendation that is before us this evening. Good evening, Mr. Lang.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Alderman Lance Lang, Principal Planner. The reason we're here tonight is because the current ordinance does not allow manufactured homes in R1 zoning, which is the zoning out in East Side Estates. And as you listen to some of these people who have been out there for a long time, obviously there's points in time where apparently they were allowed, today they're not. So as you know, the code says what it says, so we have to follow that or take whatever action there is to address it. In my research, talking to the county, the East Side Estates was platted as a county subdivision back in 1962, and the county planner told me at that time that the R3 zoning in the county allowed for single family and manufactured home. It didn't distinguish between the two. Other people have said when it first started it was all single family, so I don't know, but that's what the county planner told me. Then in about 1975, the city took that over into our ETJ and zoned it R1, which was our single family. And I believe that manufactured homes weren't allowed by right at that time. But if we look back through the record, several of the homes out there were moved in by special use permit. Some of them were moved in after the flood. And the reason that the gentleman was able to tear down a double wide and move another one in just recently is because in Chapter 25 of the zoning ordinance, which is nonconforming uses, there's a section that says if you have a legal nonconforming manufactured home, which would be in this case a manufactured home on R1 zoning, it can be replaced with a different manufactured home as long as the old one's moved out, the new one moved in within 30 days, and the new unit is no larger or the same size as the one that's leaving. So you couldn't move a single wide out and move a double wide in. You could move a double wide out and move a single wide in, which is apparently what they did. So there's a long history of kind of mixture of uses. And Mr. Kraft pointed out what he thought were 12 manufactured homes that had been moved in recent years, and the building department researched each one of those addresses. And they do have permits either through the move it in, move it out, or through special use permits earlier. And so there are at least 12 out there. It sounds like there may be as many as 24 out there, or 50, I'm sorry, was the number that was said. So from a staff perspective, in order to make a recommendation on this, it's certainly not a neighborhood that is purely stick-built homes. And probably the biggest hurdle for us technically is that the comprehensive plan, which we rely on heavily with our rezoning advice to the council, and the council and commission rely on with the rezoning cases, does not address this area. For some reason, the future land use plan doesn't go this far out, and I don't know why. There's a couple other parts of town that way too. So without a recommendation as to what the best and highest or highest and best land use would be, kind of ties our hands. So this is one where the neighbors out there seem to be, at least a lot of them, supportive of it. There was a petition passed around. It's in your packet with 60 signatures. Certainly there was a lot of people that didn't sign it, but we don't know if they were against it or neutral, or maybe they weren't home or whatever. So the petition is what it is, but it does show that there's some support out there for the rezoning. So I kind of went through some points there that I thought were pertinent. Are there any more valid or pointed questions you would like me to answer?
Mr. Lang, just one question from me, and then I'll turn to some of the aldermen here. As we take a look at East Side Estates, and this might be a little bit out of the purview, and I apologize for not asking in advance, and if it's outside, I certainly understand not having that information in front of you. As we look at East Side Estates and other areas that are down in the valley where we talk about either moving something in or building something new, have we taken a look at East Side Estates in our ET for what we anticipate with our floodplain also changing come 2021, as those rules then for anything new or being moved in will have to adhere to what that given floodplain will look like?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think that we know that the changes are coming, and we know that anything that's moved in there or built there, whether it's moved in as in a manufactured home or if it's built on site as a stick build, will have to comply with those new regulations. And they will be stricter in most cases than what they are today.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Alderman Wolski, you had a question?
I did. Thank you, Mayor. Lance, can you speak a little bit about the use of spot zoning and the circumstances under which it is a tool we can use? Obviously, this has been a topic I've heard at a number of different planning meetings, usually with some hesitancy about deploying a spot zoning circumstance. In this case, your guys' recommendation to the Planning Commission was that spot zoning isn't a deterrent in this situation. So can you fill me in a little bit?
Alderman Wolski, Mayor Sitma. Spot zoning is a term you hear thrown around a lot in planning, and I'm not an attorney, but I don't know that spot zoning in and of itself is necessarily illegal. But the argument would be that you're treating usually a small single parcel of land different than what's around it, and not in conformance with the comp plan. And again, here we don't have a comp plan recommendation. We have quite a few lots that have manufactured homes on them, kind of a mixed bag. So I think all zoning to a degree is spot zoning because you're zoning a spot of land. It's just how big is the spot, right? And what are the circumstances involving it? There are certainly a lot of single lots that are kind of oddly zoned. If you look at the overall city map, there's a lot of quote-unquote spot zoning that's been approved in the past. Now, one of the things that we talked about with the applicant, actually with the applicant's son-in-law, Mr. Wilkins, was perhaps the best way to approach this to kind of hedge against the spot zoning argument is talk to some other people that have manufactured homes out there and see if they'd like to get on the petition to be zoned MH instead of R1. But with him and living in Bismarck and whatnot, I mean, that's a lot of legwork and everything. So they decided not to do that. But that's what I know about spot zoning. I don't know. I'm not an attorney. The city attorney might have an opinion on when it's illegal and not illegal or whatnot.
Any further questions for Mr. Lang?
Not for Mr. Lang, but if our city attorney has a comment on the spot zoning.
Nope.
Mr. Mayor and Alderman Wolski, I think Mr. Lang covered it pretty well.
Okay.
And so if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lang. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Last opportunity on a public hearing, either in favor or opposed. If not, I would look to the council for, do we have one more? Please come forward if you have something new, please. And Mr. Fisher, is it correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Just one more thing I'd like to add. You have the maps there, and there are very few lots left out there to be developed at this point. That development is pretty much developed. And with all the manufactured homes and everything that are there, and again, I want to stress, most of those are extremely nice properties, it's not likely you're going to get stick builts coming in there. And we need to get this development finished off. And having Gene, well, if you know of anything that he's done, it's always nice. So just thought I'd add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Last chance for anyone else. If not, I would look for a motion from the council. Alderman Wolski.
I would move we close the public hearing and approve the zone change to the staff recommendation of manufactured home.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Wolski, second by Alderman Olson, again to approve the change to staff recommendation mobile home, or I'm sorry, manufactured home district. Discussion on the motion. Alderman Patragula.
Right, I'm not normally a fan of spot zoning, however broad an area we define it, but I drove around that area this afternoon. It took me a while to find it, but once I found it, it's a nice little neighborhood. And I don't see anything that would change the character of the neighborhood if we approved this motion. The houses, I think, are fairly indistinguishable in terms of whether they're stick-built or manufactured homes. People put a lot of pride into their properties. They're larger lots. I don't think this would at all affect negatively the character of the neighborhood, and it sounds like it would be kind of a gracious deed. And I think, as people have pointed out, it's close to being completed, and the rules have changed over the years. I don't think it's fair to let people on their property kind of be subject to the whims of whichever zoning authority happens to issue policies 1 year or 1 decade as opposed to another. I don't see it harming the neighborhood at all. In fact, probably improving it.
Further discussion on the motion. Alderman Wolski.
Mayor Sitma, thank you. Obviously, always a challenge when there's a little bit of maybe a discrepancy in policy. But if we were looking at this from a variance perspective, one of the conditions that we might approve a variance, or the Planning Commission, would approve a variance on, would be property rights enjoyed by others. And this is a clear example where this is a mixed-use neighborhood between stick-built and manufactured homes. We've got overwhelming support here from the public and those who have taken the time to attend and participate in the public hearing. This is a very clear-cut case for me. I think we should approve.
Further discussion. Further discussion. Once again, the motion is to close the public hearing and to approve the change to a manufactured home district. Kelly, please call the roll.
Wolski?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padragula?
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes care of our planning Commission section. On to the item 7, which is consent items. Are there any items that need to be pulled out of our consent agenda list, 7.1 through 7.13?
Mr. Mayor, I've got one item from myself for a comment, item 7.9, and Alderman Straight had requested that I ask a question on our acquisitions. I think that's 7.13.
7.13, okay. 7.9, 7.13 have been pulled. Any other items that need to be pulled? If not, I would look for a motion.
Move approval on the remaining items.
Motion by Alderman Olson, second by Alderman Padrigula, was it? Oh, I'm
Pittner.
sorry, Pittner. Thank you. Motion to approve all items in our consent except for 7.9 and 7.13. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Wolski. Yes. Sitma.
Yes. Motion is approved. 7.9 is the Cutting Edge Award of Bids, project number 4231. On September 19th, 2018, the Public Works Department opened the bids for the cutting edges for the upcoming snow removal season. And 7 bids were received, and they are also listed within the handouts. I will not go through each individual. The recommended award to bid Butler Machinery in the amount of $37.09 per edge for the cutting edges for the upcoming season.
Approval.
Motion to approve by Alderman Wolski, second by Alderman Pittner. Discussion, Alderman Wolski.
Mayor Sitma, a comment in terms of some information that I think I would appreciate seeing in the future regarding our snow removal, and I think would tell a story as well for the public in terms of how we go about this work. And so this is sort of attached to our items 7.7 in terms of the sand, item 7.9, 7.8, which is, I believe, the salt. But when it comes to snow removal, I think I would appreciate seeing a database that captures some of this information on a year-to-year basis, which might include how many days we have snow removal equipment on the road, how many tons of sand we actually use in any given year based on the number of snow events we have, how many tons of salt we use in any given year, how many cutting blades we actually go through. And so, I think this information is valuable in terms of what it takes to run a snow removal operation in a city this size, but also helpful for the council in terms of budgeting. Right now, we have our budget set essentially based on what we purchased last year, but we know that, if we get a string of 3 or 4 mild winters in a row, obviously that budgeting amount might change a little bit from year to year. And so I think just in general, this type of information, which I think would be relatively easy to track through a spreadsheet, is worth tracking, and I'd like to see it on the website because I think people would appreciate seeing it.
Director Jonason, you read my mind. I was just about to call you out and say, I think we have your director's report for April. That would be good to provide that. Please continue.
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Wolski, actually, just about all that information was in my report I gave last year in October or November. I can't remember when it was, when I highlighted the street department. We actually had the information on there on the number of cutting edges that we've used in the prior years, sand, salt spread, a lot of that information. I'd be happy to get it for